Good to see you all. Thank you so much for coming on a Tuesday afternoon, on a hot Tuesday afternoon, I just want to say. So let me just say that I am not offended if you close your eyes and fall into a stupor, because that's what would happen to me if I was sitting down at this time listening to anybody, no matter how wonderful it is. Dasi, welcome. So glad you came. And so today, I'm going to talk about the practice of pranayama. So how many people know what pranayama is? Good. How many people practice pranayama? All right, cool. All right, so we're going to delve into what this means. It will be experiential, but I want to lay some groundwork first. The first part of this is actually the word practice. So I lived the first time in a yoga ashram for 9.5 years. And that was pretty much the 80s, so I sort of have no culture references from the 80s because we are a cloistered, celibate, renunciate community. So people mention things, and I'm like, oh, that must have been the 80s. Movies and music, and it's like, Somebody told me that if you were going to miss a decade, the 80s was the decade to miss, so I missed it. So, but my teacher used to say this all the time. People would come up and during darshan and ask questions. And he used to answer their questions, and often he would say 3 words to people. He would say, practice, practice, practice. And when I was young and stupid, I thought, oh, that's such a rote answer. I could say that. It's just such a stupid answer. But the older I get, the more I practice, the answer is practice, 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 pretty much for anything and everything. So practice to me is actually what I've decided that yoga is. The practice of yoga, as far as I'm concerned, is actually the practice of learning how to learn. And when we really truly learn how to learn, we can start to unlearn, which is really what learning is coming to a state of unlearning so that we create a state of openness to be present. So ultimately, yoga for me is the ultimate learning, the learning how to let go of everything. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which I'm going to delve into just a bit, he says, the goal of all yoga is to come into the present moment, to be in the present moment without any of your distortions, without any of your projections, without any of your ideas about what it should be, good or bad. So it's like everything has to go so that you can be present in the present moment and allow it to be the awesome moment that it is, just as it is. Like, it doesn't need your help to be better or worse or anything, just your presence. So that again is unlearning. So learning how to learn is ultimately what practice is. Also, Patanjali says in here that practice is, and he describes this, it's one of my favorite sutras, practice is continuous struggle over long periods of time with great faith in God. Continuous struggle over long periods of time with great faith in God. And that makes most of us go, yeah, forget it, right away. Especially that, struggle part and over long periods of time. Yeah, no, not into it. We're looking for the immediate joy thing. But practice, I'm going to deliberately choose continuous struggle over long periods of time and have great faith that it's actually going to do something. Yes, that is what practice is. So now that I've inspired you so totally with how dull and difficult practice is, I want to get into Patanjali's sutras here for a moment. So in chapter 1, and how many people are familiar with Patanjali sutras? Cool. So one of my all-time favorite books, a very pithy, short, 196 concise lines, and written over 2,000 years ago, so in yoga philosophy, a relatively new scripture. And in order to be considered a scripture, it has to satisfy 6 different things. And one of them is that it has to be considered divinely inspired. to me, lots of divinely inspired material, no matter what language it comes in. So, for example, I really liked the Emmanuel books that Ram Dass loved also so many years ago. And they come out in a pentameter that's got, like it's almost from a different place. It's almost very poetic. A Course in Miracles has a whole different, if you're familiar with that channeled material, and it takes a bit to learn how to get into the way that it speaks. Well, this material of Patanjali's is so succinct, and it is put into sutras, which means a thread or a verse, and it's like a poem. So it's a 196 line poem, 4 chapters. Now I have a theory here about the 4th chapter, which is there's a debate about the 4th chapter as to whether Patanjali actually wrote it or not. I'm on the side that Patanjali did not write the 4th chapter. So I tend to disregard the 4th chapter. So that actually puts it for me that he wrote 150 lines, and I just like to say, consider this assignment. Let's say somebody comes to you and says, I'd like you to put down the mechanics of consciousness and the universe, and I'd like you to tell people how to attain enlightenment and happiness in 150 lines. That's quite an assignment, right? I think he did it. To me, this is an incredibly concise manual on how to attain a state of consciousness. Every practice that I've ever needed has been in here. So I really love this book. So the first chapter is basically telling you where we're going. It tells you what can happen if you actually engage in the practices that he's about to speak about. The second chapter is the practices. And I want to read the first line of the second chapter. So the first line of the second chapter says, the practical means, meaning again practical and practices, for attaining higher consciousness consists of 3 components: self-discipline and purification. Now the Sanskrit word for self-discipline and purification is tapas. T-A-P-A-S, tapas. Tapas happens to be, when we start the rungs of the 8 rungs of Ashtanga Yoga, there's the yamas and the niyamas. They start at the bottom, character building. And these are tapas, the 3 that he lists here are the last 3 niyamas, okay? So he's saying here, you need self-discipline and purification. Now, self-discipline and purification, creating a tapas for yourself means, wow, I've decided I'd like to be a better person. I have decided that I'm going to put my energy and attention on being the best that I can be, okay? And that could be in any realm. I'm going to lose weight and exercise. I'm going to be more conscious with my speech. I'm going to, aim for being a happier person. I'm going to do better at business, whatever it is, okay? So whatever it is that you decide is your practice, your conscious practice, it's going to take some self-discipline. The purification part comes in this. Straight across the board, the moment we set an intention, the moment it comes out of our mouth or into our brain, I like to call them primaries and secondaries. The moment I set a primary, what comes up is all the secondaries. So I'm going to lose 35 pounds. Immediately, I want a donut. It's like, boom, it's like, it happens immediately. I'm going to, and then immediately all of the secondaries come up. That's where the purification comes in. We set these goals, and immediately everything that comes up is all of our self-sabotaging behavior, okay? So lots of people then get caught in the self-sabotaging behavior. And the self-sabotaging behavior just is what, I was heading that way, but oops. I was heading that way, but oops. I was heading that way, but oops, okay? So, but when we set something like this, the meaning of tapas is you choose a worthy goal and you realize, and this is the spiritual path, that on the way to that worthy goal, self-sabotaging behavior will come up, should come up. That's why you're in this practice. Nothing's gone wrong. You stick with it and you get an opportunity to dismantle that self-sabotaging behavior. So I call self-sabotaging behavior habitual, indoctrinated, unconscious patterns, okay? And we hold habitual, unconscious, indoctrinated, unconscious patterns in our cells, we hold it in our energy field, and we hold it in our mind. So we've got practices for yoga to clear each of those places, Okay? There's asana that helps you clear unconscious habitual patterns in the body. There's pranayama, which helps you clear unconscious habitual energy and patterns held in your energy field. And there's meditation and concentration exercises to help you clear unconscious habitual indoctrinated beliefs and thinking. Pretty cool. So we set ourselves a worthy goal. We grab tapas. The second one then, it says, so consists of these three components: self-discipline and purification, which is tapas. The second one is self-study. Okay, so here's which is called swadhyaya. Swadhyaya means you're the only thing that's happening here. The only thing to be studying is yourself, constantly. The only thing of interest here is how am I creating my experience? As I like to say, we may not be in charge of what happens to us, but we are always in charge of how we experience what happens to us. Okay? So being able to be in charge of our experience is what self-study is all about. That's the part that you actually have some control about. Hey, Razan. And then third, and here we are again, and the last is Ishvari Pranadhana, which means great devotion to God. That's what's going to grease the wheels and help you along the way. So this is sort of that continuous struggle over long periods of time with great faith in the Lord that you're going to get somewhere. And by God, this is again a very, he said, the very non-denominational aspect of, and a very non-dual philosophy. Okay, so there's no opposite to the source in yoga as opposed to other places. So I really like that. So we've got set yourself a practice, tapas. You're studying yourself. You're watching what comes up. It's coming up for a purpose. Acknowledge it, dismantle it in many different ways, and there's lots of tools to dismantle what comes up. And 3, continue on with great faith in God. So that just sets us up right now for the practice of pranayama. Let me say, I actually made notes, which I tend not to do. Swadhyaya, self-study. Swami Kripalu, my teacher, used to say, the highest form of yoga is establishing non-judgmental, compassionate self-observation in all that we do. Okay, so turning on that witness consciousness, we would call it, the voice of the soul, so that there's an inner watcher that is watching our thoughts. There's an inner watcher that's watching our actions. There's an inner watcher that is able to direct our attention. And often that inner watcher is out to lunch, and not necessarily the director of the attention. But the witness consciousness is what directs attention. So when you establish witness consciousness, you become in charge of your attention. He also used to say, wherever attention goes, prana flows. So again, what we put our attention on is our experience. And most of us are not very deliberate with our attention. It's just like, oh, I'm attracted over here, and oh, I don't like that. And we're not really watching and choosing. It's choosing us. So I always love to say, is it doing you, or are you doing it? If it's doing you, it's a habitual, indoctrinated, unconscious pattern. Doesn't necessarily even mean that it's bad, but you want to be in charge of it. You want to choose it. Okay, then it's a really good habit, and that's really great. What yoga practice does is it actually says, let's replace some of the bad habits with some good habits. Okay, and then eventually even those have to go also. So establishing witness consciousness, and again, when I'm leading physical yoga, asana, the real goal here is to have people watch themselves and start to notice how the body speaks. It's not about attaining anything and having a great handstand or putting your foot behind your head. None of that means anything. But going, oh gosh, my right shoulder is got less motion than my left shoulder, and let me feel into that. Oh, that's interesting. Wow, I turned here and I got something going on with my hip. And like that, noticing what your body is saying to you and turning on the ability to listen to it is when you can start to do some of the purification that comes from yoga practice. So now we're going to talk about pranayama, because pranayama is the key to the whole damn thing. Well, actually, I'll just speed through the sutras here for a second. So first, he says here the practice comes from tapas, svadhyaya, and ishvari pranadhana, or self-discipline and purification, self-study, and devotion to the Lord. And then it goes through, there's these 5 primal causes of suffering, and it talks about what I was just talking about, samskaras. Samskaras are habitual, indoctrinated, unconscious patterns from this life or others, according to yogic philosophy. I love the belief in past lives, but it doesn't matter whether you believe in past lives or not, because whether it's from a past life or this life, it's going to show up right here. The only place to dismantle it is right here and right now. So the technology is the same, whether it's, quote, true or not true. And whether it's true doesn't even matter. Whether it's helpful matters. And then it goes on and talks about these subliminal impressions, these samskaras. And then it begins the 8 limbs. So there's this... through this process, wisdom progresses through 7 phases until it extends to its fullest realm. So he gives us this wonderful gradient approach to attaining self-realization. That's pretty cool. So I'm interested in the gradient approach way. So it says yoga's 8 component parts are self-control for harmony, which are the yamas, precepts for personal discipline, which are niyamas, yoga pose, which is asana, regulation of prana, which is pranayama, withdrawal of the senses from their objects, which is turning inward, pratyahara, contemplation of our true nature, which is dharana, meditation of the true self, which is dhyana, and being absorbed in spirit, which is samadhi. So, cool, then he goes through the yamas and niyamas, and now here we are. We're on to pranayama. And very little is said about yoga poses. So here's this the best yoga manual that we have here. And there's no, where the heel should be in a triangle. Nothing. It says, stiram sukham asanam. May your posture be steady and comfortable. And actually, it's may your awareness be steady and present in your yoga pose. That's when you attain that state, then you're doing asana. So that's pretty cool. So the same is true for pranayama. He doesn't give a whole lot of descriptions here. It goes through pretty fast. And what he says is, in this 4th method, so here we are in the 4th rung, of regulating one's breath, prana is extended into the divine life force, and the range of prana is permeating everywhere. As a result of this pranayama, the veil obscuring the radiant supreme light of your inner self dissolves. And as a result, the mind attains a fitness for the process of contemplation of the true self. So this is a way to get your mind ready. And the way I would say that is because pranayama is the fastest way to create witness consciousness. That non-judgmental, compassionate self-observation. And again, your witness consciousness is what's in charge of your attention. Most of us are not the believers of our beliefs. We are our beliefs. You start to talk about, core beliefs and people get upset. Like you start talking about Republicans and Democrats and it's a lot of upset. They're not talking about the beliefs themselves as a believer of their beliefs. They're talking about, I am my belief. Okay? And so I know the truth, as opposed to, wow, here's a belief that I put in that I think is pretty cool. Tell me about the belief that you put in and what effects it has. That's a very different conversation than I'm right and you're wrong. And when someone is their belief, there's only that option. I'm right and you're wrong. So we either agree, and then what we do is we tend to get people who, of course, agree with us, and we tend to reject the people that don't agree with us. So we just get it all fortified. So attaining witness consciousness, you want to attract people who have witness consciousness, not necessarily the same beliefs as you. Witness consciousness. And you want to be like, I love Byron Katie's work. How many people are familiar with Byron Katie? So her first thing when she's dismantling beliefs that we hold is, ask yourself, is it true? Okay. Then the next question, how do you know it's true? And then the next question, how do you know it? How do you really know it's true? And the answer to everything is, I don't really know it's true. I think it's true. Like, but we come out like, yeah, it's true. I got lots of evidence for it. It's true. It's true. It's true. And then you're like, yeah, well, there's a few openings, and I think it's true. Well, I don't really know if it's true. So, again, this is the process of unlearning. It would all be helpful if we all came out and said, this is the truth. None of us know anything. We just don't. And that's just the truth. That's the truth we can pretty much all get behind. Everybody goes, yeah, that's true. I'll admit it. I mean, we're on a planet hurtling through a universe, maybe, or it's some weird matrix in some three-dimensional form. Who knows what it is? And you look like that, and I look like that, and I don't even know what you are. I don't know where we're going or what we're doing or what death is. Or I mean, let's just go. We don't know what the hell is going on here. Okay? So the moment we all go, we don't know what the hell is going on here, it's a lot more fun. Okay, and with that unlearning, that's true beginner's mind. Einstein said, that again, the only thing that ever happened for him when he answered a question was that he simply opened up a million more. And he tended to be able to answer questions because he really did not have, he was in, I don't know what's going on. He had lots and lots of curiosity. So curiosity is a key. So pranayama. Many of you have seen me do this because it's important. I want to hit this key importance of why pranayama is the ticket home. This is your diaphragm. And your diaphragm, one of my favorite muscles, is both a smooth muscle, and a striated muscle. Here's what that means. In your brain, this is your brain, that's your spine. You have your prefrontal cortex and a little pea-like piece of your brain, the medulla oblongata, your reptilian brain at the top of your brainstem. This is the oldest part of your brain. It's your reactive part of your brain. It's the first part of your brain to form as an embryo. Actually, it's the first thing to form. And then what happens is your heart forms, attaches to it, and then your intestines form, and then your diaphragm. So the reptilian brain holds your unconscious. It's your fight-flight response. Your reptilian brain holds reactions, okay? And your reptilian brain is in charge of your smooth muscles. So I'm not standing here telling my heart to beat. Go beat, 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 beat. It's beating all by itself because the reptilian brain has it on automatic and it's working. I'm not telling my lunch to go down here, go over here, come on up here, it's time to come out now. I'm not in charge of peristalsis. My reptilian brain's got it all handled. Most of the day, we don't breathe consciously at all. We go to bed at night, I'm not thinking breathe in, breathe out. The reptilian brain has it. Now we have smooth muscles, our prefrontal cortex, the newest part of our brain. That's the part of our brain that decides. So this is reactive, this is responsive. Okay, how would I like to respond? I'm going to raise my right hand now. I'm going to send it out to the side. I'm going to stick my right finger up to the sky. I'm going to touch my nose. Okay, this is my prefrontal cortex telling striated muscles what to do. Here's the cool thing about the diaphragm. It's both smooth and striated. So, all together, take a deep breath in. Come to the top of your breath and hold. 1, 1,000. 2, 1,000. 3, 1,000. And exhale. So what we just did there was we had our striated muscles override our smooth muscles. We consciously breathed as opposed to all day long unconsciously breathing. We took something that was involuntary and unconscious and we made it deliberate and conscious. That is the key benefit of pranayama. Okay? So simple. You're taking your unconscious breath and you're making it conscious. You're saying for whatever time, and you decide 1 minute, 6 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. For 20 minutes, I'm going to breathe this way. Now, there's lots of different ways to breathe. Okay, so in the practice of pranayama, there are pranayams to heat you up and purify and get lots of energy going, and there's pranayams to cool you down and get you very calm and sedated. all of them are wonderful. As a master of our body, we want to be able to do both whenever we need it. We want the full extremes. But it's about being deliberate with it and practicing both. And in practicing both, we learn what the power is of why would I use this breath and what good is this breath for. Pranayama is actually, like our digestive tract is good for digesting food, pranayama and breathing is your digestive tract for your energy, body, and your emotions. That's pretty cool. So if you want to stay in your head, and if you'd like to stay in your stuck patterns, stay in unconscious breathing and don't breathe. As I like to say, if you want to not feel something, what do? We hold our breath. And if your boss is yelling at you, something's just happening, we just clam it. The moment we do, we're out of our body, we go to our head, and we've disembodied, and the breath is shallow, and whatever we're feeling gets stuck and congested and coagulates. And it waits there until we add the breath back in. When we start to breathe deeply, and all of a sudden it's like a churn that starts to get everything going, and what you've been saving back there to feel, like I'll get onto that later, starts to come up and it starts to digest. I worked for many years in teaching yoga and mindfulness in a rehab center that I really loved. And boy, oh boy, so many people do drugs and alcohol because it's a wonderful way to self-medicate because of the trauma that's there. And it's like, rather than face the trauma, I would like to just numb out and get drunk and stoned until, that's over. Well, that doesn't really work if you really want to get sober. And in truth, we're all trying to get sober. Again, sober from our unconscious, habitual, indoctrinated patterns, okay? Sometimes they actually involve externals, but hey, we all need the 12-step program to get free of, our patterns. So with this, I just lost my train of thought. Breathe. That's such a good, very good. Breathe deliberately, and that is the answer. So we're going to breathe deliberately, all right? Any questions about this? So when we breathe deliberately and we take it from the unconscious to the conscious, what happens is literally we are forming new pathways in the brain, new dendrites. And especially in men, like this ability to go between those two brains can get harder. And literally it says for men that it takes like sometimes at 25, 26, 27, these parts of the brain are really beginning to hook up. But with meditation and pranayama practices, like everything, it can be done much earlier than that. And so keeping those pathways open help, because if you can learn how to put a pause button in, okay, and say, I wanna hit him in the face, pause, but I'm gonna pause, I'm gonna breathe, and I'm going to decide how I would like to respond rather than be in an unconscious reaction, okay? So that's the power of what pranayama can do. That's obviously a pretty gross example, but it's the way that it happens for all of our even more insidious and subtle habitual patterns that are there to guide us. So the practice of conscious breathing is the ticket. And it's the thing that powers all the other practices of yoga. So now we're going to learn simple conscious breath. Dirgha breath, dir means three, dirgha breath. The three-part breath is the belly, the ribs, and the chest. Now, there's nothing really magical to this three-part breath. What it's trying to do, again, is break up habitual patterning. Some of us, through patterning, we hold it in ourselves. Some of us are chest breathers. Some of us are belly breathers. Some of us are, not breathers at all. So with this, you want to accentuate each of the three parts of your breath so that you're getting a full breath. So you begin, and we're going to use it in and out through the nose here. So you begin by breathing in and filling up the belly first. Then it comes up to the ribs and your rib cage begins to expand. And then you continue up and your clavicles will lift, come all the way up into the upper chest. When you get to the top of your breath, go a little bit more. And then a little bit more. We're increasing our lung capacity here. Pause at the top of the breath and then slow, relaxed exhale. And you start from the top and go down. So the chest begins to descend, the ribs come in, and the belly empties. Now, as you begin to experiment with this breath, and you can continue this breath as I'm talking, as you experiment with it, each time you inhale, nice and slow and deep and full and smooth with your attention on it. When you get to the top, really go, yep, that's the top. Yep, maybe a little bit more. Yep, that's the top. I'm full. And then relaxed, slow, luxurious exhales. Enjoy the ride down to the bottom. The bottom of the breath is very, very different. So just stop for just a moment. At the top, we know. We get to the top and we're like, that's the top. Yep, that's the top. At the bottom, you could go, and we can all try this. Go to the bottom of your breath. Looks a little bit like this. Like you can't find it in a certain way. Like you could just keep going and going and going. So we're not looking for the bottom like that. At the top, yes, fill yourself up. At the bottom, you go until that impulse to breathe in again comes. There's a time where you feel like, yep, I'm empty, and the impulse to inhale comes around again. So they're very different, the top and the bottom. All right, so you're just going to inhale, smooth, slow, deep, and steady. You get to the top, you note, yep, that's the top, I'm full. And exhale, enjoying the ride. I'm going to urge you when you get home to Google the benefits, the physiological and psychological benefits of a long exhale. Many of them. Stimulates your vagus nerve, your digest and relax mode of the body. So just keep going in easy, full, gentle rounds in and out at your own pace. Close your eyes. And one fun way to, if you feel like your attention is wandering, is to simply talk to yourself about the breath. So you can say to yourself, yep, I'm breathing in now. I feel the air coming in my nose. I'm going to the top of my breath. Yep, there it is. Oops, I'm at the top. Yep, that's the top. And now I'm breathing out now. The air is coming out. It's smooth, it's slow, it's luxurious. It's so cool. So if you join your mind with your experience and just sort of label what's happening, that can be a nice way to begin to train the mind. Filling up all three parts, the belly, the ribs, the chest. And the chest descends, the ribs fall in, the belly empties. Great, and gently open your eyes. So, how do you feel after 2, 3 conscious breaths? Any shifts? Just say how you feel. Calm, relaxed, more present, peaceful. Okay, isn't that crazy? For many people, it was 2 or 3 conscious breaths. All right, so this technique, this great tool, is always with us, period, everywhere. From the moment we're born, we take our first inhale, to the time we take our last exhale, we have this tool with us. And it is really great to practice conscious breathing. So that's the foundation, Dirga breath, a full 3-part breath. Just want to say this, many of you have been to yoga classes where like a yoga teacher might say something like, lift your toes and set your little toe down and then the next toe down and then the next and the next. It's simply to teach articulation, like to create some distinction. The same is true with the breath. So you don't have to get neurotic with these. You start your practice with belly, ribs, chest, and eventually your body learns how to really start breathing in a full Dirga 3-part breath. So, it's not like you have to be anal about any of these things. That's what happens with practice over long periods of time. So now that we've got the foundation of a full breath in our body, we go on to the second part, which is Ujjayi breath. So Ujjayi breath is now the ocean sounding breath. And this does a number of different things. So it's a constriction of the glottis in the back of the throat, and it's like the beginning of a snore. So take your hand and put it in front of your mouth and pretend you're fogging up a mirror and just, and then maybe a little harder, suck in and fog up the mirror so it's, and now close your mouth and continue that. So do you hear that sound going on in the back? What this does when you do that slight constriction is it forces you to take a smoother, slower breath. There's less airway, less space available when you constrict your glottis. It makes this humming sound. So humming stimulates your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve is actually the Kundalini snake that's inside of us. So not so long ago, the vagus nerve was really not talked about or researched at all. And most everybody thought, here's the brain, then there's the brainstem, and the nervous system is your brain and the brainstem, and it comes out of your spine. But the vagus nerve, vega means like a vagabond, means to wander. It's the wandering nerve. Comes down your brain, and then it wanders through the body. And it is in charge of all the rest and digest aspects of your body. It's in charge of your glandular system. And we all know that our glands are what keep everything balanced or imbalanced. That's actually the Kundalini energy, the snake-like energy that the yogis saw. And weirdly enough and wonderfully enough, each of our glands happens to be associated with one of the energy centers of the chakras, all the way up to our pineal and pituitary glands. And when we do this restricted breath, it stimulates the vagus nerve. So you're beginning Kundalini yoga. You're waking up the snake and bringing it into a state of balance. In hospitals now, they used to give, many do just give antidepressants, but they now have these little machines to help people with anxiety. They put them on their throat and it just hums. It's like a cat that purrs, just hums. And what it does is stimulate the vagus nerve. So it's that simple. But yogis knew this thousands of years ago. We got it inside of us. All you have to do is do that slight constriction. Your breath slows down. You start vibrating that vagus nerve, and you'll bring that rest and digest motion into a nice state. So any questions about that? Dirga Ujjayi breath, a conscious breath. Here's the fun thing about Ujjayi breath too. When, it's one more thing to quote do in the practice. So what's fun is when all of a sudden you stop doing Ujjayi breath and you're like, oh God, what's for dinner today? Oh, I didn't get anything. I have to go shopping. Oh, whoops. Where's the breath? Oh, all right. So, and we hear, oh, that sound stopped. What happened? Oh gosh, I floated off on plans for dinner. Come back to the breath. Okay? Stay with it, because I made a commitment. I was going to do this breath for 15 minutes. When your attention wanders, just bring it back. Nothing has gone wrong. You just remembered that you didn't have anything for dinner. Okay, great. That's cool. Come back to the breath. And this is how we begin to train our mind to stay present. So the power is in the presence. Your breath is always happening right now. So you want to come into the now, be here now, Ram Dass, be here now. Conscious breathing will bring you into the present moment. The moment you're like, oh yeah, hello. What happens is you start activating what in yoga is called the 5 layers of the self, the 5 koshas. Number 1, somebody has to wake up and say, take a conscious breath. Oh yeah, hello, take a conscious breath. That's your witness consciousness kicked in, okay? Then you have to breathe, okay? So now we've got the prana involved. Then you're breathing into your body. Your diaphragm actually has to get online here. So now we've got our body, our breath, and our witness consciousness involved. And then it's like, what's been going on with my attention? Oh, place my attention on the breath. So now we've got our body, our breath, our mind involved, and our witness consciousness involved. And the last one is the soul. There's no yoga practices for your Anandamaya kosha. That just is waiting for us to get all lined up in the other 4 so that we can begin to have a soul experience in some way, which is always in the present moment. Our infinite soul is always available in the present moment only. These are the locks to come into the present moment. So conscious breathing is the key. And asana, without conscious breathing, is gymnastics. That's what I call it. It's gymnastics. And gymnastics is great. It's a great sport. But it's not yoga. So, putting the conscious breath to our movement, and then the movement, what we're doing with movement is really unimportant. But once we put the power of our breath to it, we're doing yoga. So now we're going to take that Dirga Ujjayi breath, the conscious breathing, and we're going to do some slow motion prana exercises. I wish I had blindfolds because I would blindfold you all. But we're going to trust that you're going to close your eyes and not look at your neighbor, okay? So with this, but keep your eyes open for just a second. So here's what's going to happen. Imagine that you are in the thickest prana that's like thick like honey, okay? So no fast movements. Everything is a slow motion prana exercise with tons of awareness. I'm going to give you some verbal cues. Whether you're doing it right or wrong, it doesn't matter. So if I say, bring your arms out in front of you, and one of you does this, and one of you does this, none of that matters. There's no, this wasn't right, and this wasn't right. So whatever you do is right, okay? So, but how it will happen is this. I'll say, so our eyes will be closed, and we'll land in Dirga Ujjayi breath. And with this, I'll say, as slowly and deliberately as possible, begin to bring your hands into prayer position. So it would look like this. Or something like that. Okay, so we're really taking our time. It would not look like this. Slowly bring your hands into prayer position. Okay? So you want to just be in every micro movement that you can. There's presence. You're taking your time. This is the meditation, slow motion meditation. When we get here, I might say, extend your arms out in front of you and spread your fingers. This would take a long time. I just want to take a diversion story. So this was literally the first day I moved into the ashram, and I was young, and I wanted to get enlightened fast. Okay, I knew that yoga it said it could end the cycle of birth and death, and I was so unhappy here, and I just never wanted to come back to this planet again, and I was going to do those practices so I could get off this stinking planet and out of here, and so I'm just going to do it right. So I sit down with this yoga teacher, who at the time was 65 years old, and I thought she was older than God. Now, of course, I'm older than she is, but oh well. And we sat down. She sat in front of the room, and she led us in a yoga experience. She had us take our hands from here, and we sat. And for 1.5 hour, we went from here to here. And for the next half hour, we went from here to here. That was the whole yoga class. Well, 6 minutes into it, I'm here, and I'm sweat coming down my head, and my back is aching, and sugar frosted flakes are oozing from my skin, and it was like I was going through lifetimes of torture and everything. And this woman was as calm and as present. I thought, she's enlightened. That's it. She's no 0 ounce of struggle in any way, shape, or form. Okay. Now, this isn't that exercise, so I'm not asking you to come to that. But slow motion prana was something that we did a lot of. So close your eyes. Land in your conscious breath. Dirga Ujjayi breath. 3-part breath. Ocean sounding breath. Breathing in and out deliberately, slowly, and fully. To the top, taking note in your own timing, and long, luxurious exhales, enjoying the release. Letting the body know that it's okay. It is safe. When the breath is calm, the body knows it is safe. Cortisol and adrenaline levels lower. Serotonin levels and dopamine levels raise. Now, as you continue your Dirgha Ujjayi breath, so slowly, and then slower than that, begin to bring your awareness to your palms and hands as you breathe, and begin to allow them to begin to lift weightlessly, effortlessly, slowly, filled with life force, filled with prana, energy, filled with your breath, filled with attention. Perhaps if someone was watching you, it would be imperceptible. They wouldn't even see the movement. Allow yourself, as your palms begin to raise, to explore in your own subtle ways the space and the energy. Powered by the breath. Have your hands be somewhere between a quarter to halfway there this time. And wherever you are is good. You may begin to be turning the palms towards each other. Powered by the breath, fully present. Feeling every subtle movement. The energy present in the breath and palms. Wherever your palms are, your hands are in space, begin to really open the fingers now, really wide, nice and slow, so slow. Have your palms be as open as they can be. Coming closer to finding each other. In front of the heart space. taking all the time that you need. Absorbed in the breath. Notice that time, that moment when perhaps the fingertips find each other like spaceships finding each other in space, connecting. Taking all the time that you need, and when they do, begin to press the palms together. And empower it with breath. Take all the time that you need. If your palms have found each other, begin to make these circles in front of the heart where you lift your palms up and over and out in front of you and down, like you're making a ring in front of the heart. Powered by the breath. So slow, so subtle. Palms pressed together, then raising up, moving out in front of you, down and around, slow and steady. Feel free to find your speed of presence and breath. Now let this prana in the palms begin to envelop your whole body. So as the palms circle and the palms come close to the heart, perhaps you lean back and open your heart to the sky more. Perhaps you lift your palms up higher and circle them out further. Whatever feels right to you. Follow your prana. Let the breath and prana energy be the guide. Yoga, union, with your multi-dimensional self. Breath and prana are in the driver's seat. The mind is in the back seat. Now begin to extend your hands out in front of you. Long arms reaching out in front of you. Take all the time that you need and slowly turn the palms up into receptivity. Lean your head back, your heart up, and breathe. Let your arms begin to open to the sides. You may meet a neighbor, so feel free to stop whenever. And begin to raise the palms up to the sky. Slowly, slowly, allow the palms to find each other above the crown. Sustain your palms above the crown as you breathe, and imagine yourself like a lightning rod, drawing down, breathing in divine energy, divine healing. Through the fingertips into the heart, into the lungs. And whenever you're ready, very slowly let the palms descend, taking that healing from the heavens, bringing the palms together in front of the heart. And eventually to their resting position where they began. And notice how you feel. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes. So what did you notice or feel in that experience? Anything and everything is all good.
I found myself focusing on my exhale easier than on my inhale.
So was it longer, the exhale? Nice. I love a good exhale. Great. Fun. Anybody else? Anything else? Zan? I saw that.
Literally, my arms were meditating, and I went into this deep stillness, and it's not like my body
Mm-hmm.
it was moving, but it's not like the physical exhaustion.
Mm-hmm.
Something else was lifting,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the stillness and the breath.
Yep. Yeah. I saw that. Yep. That's the power of prana, too. Again, when I was talking about my friend Leela, who did this, same thing. Effortless. Effortless. Prana was holding her. For me, it was all will. You know, my hands, and I'm holding them up, and everything's aching. It was like, you know, how could that be?
Yeah, I think I was on
You
the
know.
other end of the spectrum there.
Okay.
I was noticing how heavy it was when I started raising it. I was like, oh wow, this is very heavy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And all this is, again, this thing about practice. Practice, practice, practice. It's not like hers was right and yours was wrong, or yours was right and hers was right, you know. Like next time, you know, be totally different. So long periods of time. really, really make a difference with practice. Anybody else? So for me, when I do my own personal yoga practice, I mean, there's fun. Keki and I, have a whole routine that we do that we love, and it's, we've got our heads involved, and great, and we always have our breath going, and it's very much about an aerobic activity and getting a lot of getting every joint going, and so we stay pretty awake in that way. But when I'm doing my own yoga practice, I light my candles, I bow down, I land in my Dirga Ujjayi breath, my mind is somewhere else, and I let prana and the breath take me wherever it goes. So if the mind comes in, it's like, whoa, that was interesting. Like, whoa, how did I get here? Whoa, So that's the connect of yoga union, is having, again, being able to let prana be the guide, okay, and waking up prana, which is one of the main purposes of yoga. Anybody else? Anything else about any of this so far?
That was epic. I just had an incredible experience right now. It's not like, this is how monks levitate themselves. It's just with
Absolutely.
more presence and deeper, union with the breath. Is that how they levitate? My arms were levitating.
I know.
That was epic.
I love that.
Wow.
Keep practicing, and next time you're going to be sitting right here. Like, everyone sit down, Razan, so you just hang out up there.
Experiencing a new form of meditation.
It's great.
Wow,
Yeah. Good. It's good stuff. Slow motion prana exercises.
I had a question about the.
Yes.
So there's the in breath, and then is there a pause at the and I know I'm probably overanalyzing it, but is there a pause at the when you're holding it? Is there a pause after you let go, or it's just do how you feel?
Well, if we were practicing certain formal pranayams, here's the thing. Basically, the breath goes like this. You breathe in, and you breathe out.
So don't worry about
It's real simple. But within that, there's so many ways. You could do it fast. You could do it slow. You could do it through your nose. You could do it through your mouth. You could breathe in through your nose. You could breathe out through your mouth. You could breathe in through your mouth and out through your nose. You can hold your breath at the top. You can hold your breath at the bottom. I mean, these are all, and any combination thereof is a form of pranayama. Okay, so it's great during long periods of extended practice when you're really practicing pranayama. You'll play with all of those, okay? With this, it was simply noting, get to the top and notice, yep, that's the top. Not a big hold, just a pause, like, yep, that's the top. And now I'm starting the descent, But find a hold for a bit if you want, Nothing wrong with any of it. It's just, again, like, what are you trying to create? All right, with that, we're going to pump things up a bit, okay, and just get a practice of something different here. So the next breath we're going to practice is Kapalabhati, skull polishing breath. Okay, it is we probably need some Kleenex here. Just test your snot, pretend you're blowing a bug out of your nose. Okay, I think we've got some. Dasi, do we have Kleenex in it? We do.
on my way.
Okay, so if you need a Kleenex from that little bug experiment, then raise your hand. The box is coming around. So Kapalabhati is very simple. It is a forceful exhale, a relaxed inhale, all through the nose. So it's like you're blowing a bug out of your nose. Looks like this. So it's a forceful exhalation. You are clearing out your lungs, any stagnant air in the lungs. You're exercising the diaphragm. As we get older, our diaphragm tends to atrophy. So we're getting a skull polishing experience. We're going to do like 25 or so Kapalabhati breaths. Then I'll have you exhale all your air. Inhale nice and deep, and we'll hold. Holding your breath is called kumbhak. There are internal kumbhaks and external kumbhaks. Holding your breath at the top of the breath, which is easier, and holding your breath at the bottom of the breath, which is harder. So we're going to do an internal kumbhak. So, are you ready? Exhale all your air. Inhale nice and deep and hold your breath at the top. Sip in some more and hold. Sip in more and hold. A little bit more. Close your eyes and exhale, relax your breath and feel the effects of skull polishing breath. We're going to do 3 rounds. So that was round number 1. So here we go for round number 2. Exhale all your air. Inhale nice and deep and hold at the top. Sip in more and hold. A little bit more and hold. And a little more and hold. And exhale, relax your breath, close your eyes and feel. Notice how you feel. Skull polishing breath. Maybe a little lightheaded. Final round of Kapalabhati breath. Exhale all your air. Inhale nice and deep and hold your breath at the top. Sip in more and hold. Sip in a little more and hold. And exhale, close your eyes and feel the effects. 3 rounds, 3 simple rounds of skull polishing breath. Right, so what was your experience of Kapalabhati breath? What do you feel? More relaxed? Lightheaded. Anybody else lightheaded? Yep.
Well, perhaps I'll never feel the need to smoke marijuana after this thing.
That's right.
I just activated like that cannabis effect inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
It's probably because you've got so much in there already. It just started to purify. You're like getting high from last night. Teasing you, but that could be true. But it's definitely a high.
for me right now.
Yeah. So right below your diaphragm, right here is your largest lymph gland. And when we do this deep diaphragmatic pumping, we do a lot of things. But one of the things that it does is it squishes out lymphatic fluid. So it does start a purification process. But also we're highly oxygenating because that was a lot more oxygen than we were doing before with that forceful exhale and then the inhale. So the lightheadedness is that increase in oxygen that we're getting. Lots of great benefits to increased oxygen. So that's a breath that you might want to do, like you said, that you felt more relaxed, but a lot of people tend to feel more like clearer, more energized, and more like a little more heat than like Dirga Ujjayi breath, which tends to be more calming and relaxing. Yes, Jim?
You always add the holding at the end?
No, it's not a wrong or right. I just like it. and it does intensify it. So to do a kumbhak at the end just sort of plants in some of the effects than if we were to just end it.
It felt like that's exactly what it did. It felt like it just kind of locked it in.
Yeah. So also kumbhaks are really great because they help balance out carbon monoxide and dioxide within the body. So it's great to do kumbhaks. I do them every day at some point, often, stupidly, while driving in the car. So I like to just, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to do a kumbhak, and I'll inhale and just hold my breath for as long as I can to just see how that goes, And there's lots of great effects to breath holding in terms of purification. And one of the greatest effects, again going back to the mind, of holding the breath like that is if you want to start to hear this relationship between the reptilian brain and the prefrontal cortex, the moment you start holding your breath, these two brains start talking, and they are very different than each other. And it sounds something like this. You inhale, hold your breath, and the reptilian brain starts to go, breathe, fucker, you're dying, mayday, 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 warning, warning. And your other part goes, you're okay, calm down, you're fine. Oh, maybe you're feeling a little puffy. Breathe, breathe, no, God, you gotta go. No, you're okay, like you can go longer. Breathe, breathe, no, you're gonna die, that's it. So it's like these two brains are really distinct in terms of each other, in terms of what goes on when you start to do breath retention. There's big benefit to that, to be able to hold your breath and to deal with your reptilian brain and to stay in body sensation and say, I'm actually fine. I can actually go longer. I can actually go longer. I cannot believe, I don't have to believe what's going on here. So that practice, simply that simple practice of doing conscious kumbhak is really great. And again, in recovery, I was doing that a lot with people. So there's lots of these benefits of, for people who have addiction issues, like cold plunges are really being touted as very helpful. Because one of the things that a cold plunge does is exactly this. It gets these two parts of the brain freaking out. The reptilian brain is like, you're gonna die, this is so cold, you gotta get out. And the other part's like, could I go a little longer? Could I relax? Could I take a breath? And that fight starts to happen. And when it does, trauma gets released from the body. People have releases of trauma. So kumbhak does the same thing. And we're here, as I said at the beginning, to start to purify those samskaras, those held patterning within our body. And it's often during times of trauma, we made up decisions about life and men and women and ourselves. And that's the moment when I said, I'm unworthy. And that's the moment when I said, all men are assholes. And that's the moment when I said, I hate money. And they're all in there. And, and we have to go back to the moment when we decided and created the belief and said, this is true. And we have to go back to that moment to redecide and take responsibility for the reality that we created. So kumbhaks are a great way, pranayama a great way. Any other thoughts, questions about Kapalabhati?
I didn't know that this was within the context of this, but the pattern practice is very helpful when you are in the water and surfing.
Absolutely.
And you get knocked over by a wave and you're tumbling in that wave and you don't know when you're going to come up for air.
Absolutely.
I immediately go into that state.
Right. Relax and, yep. And so along with that, because this is, many of the practices of yoga are designed to bring us so that we have a peaceful death. Okay, so that at the moment of death, our passing is very peaceful, because they say sort of in that moment of death, you sort of bring with you, whatever's going on at that moment. So to be able to associate and bring yourself to a place of calm when something else is happening, it's like, okay, this may be the moment when I'm heading out of my body, but I'm just going to, cool out, chill out, and, see what happens, like stay with it, And if any of us, are to have, quote, a normal death versus something like sudden, most of us will end up dying where suffocation is a part of it. So if you've been blessed enough to be at anybody's passing, there comes a time the body starts to shut down, the Annamaya kosha starts to shut down, and the organs fail and this and that. But the presence, the person's mind is there. They're not able to speak perhaps, but they can hear you. And then the breath starts to go. So it's called the death rattle. And it comes a time where breath is really like, and some people really struggle at that time, like, you can see and feel the fear, and they're struggling to breathe, because they're dying and they're having, and other people, just the breath just shallows out, till eventually nothing. I was with my father when he passed away, and he was doing such a great job, and he waited for me and my two brothers to get there, and we're sitting there, and he was dying. This was his moment, and he knew it was his moment. And I was really irritated with my brothers who were like talking about baseball and like just sitting there. I was like, And then what was really wonderful, this moment happened where they had called the minister. My dad's minister was coming, so my one brother left to go get the minister, and my other brother wanted to go get a sandwich. So they left, and I was with my dad, who was breathing shallowly at this time. And I said, Dad, so here's what's going to happen. At some moment, you're going to have to not breathe in again. You're simply going to have to exhale and never breathe in again. It's your time, and you can do this. And with that, he exhaled, and he never breathed in again. And he exhaled, and I was like, you're doing it. We're right here. You're doing it. Just stay with it. You're doing it. You're doing it. You're doing it. And then at that moment, my brother walked in and, how's he doing? I'm like, stop, like, don't interrupt this. And he just stayed with it and left. So, I know that he heard me. I know that, that I helped. He wanted to get through the gate, and it's like, let go of this body, So the question is, can you do that? Practicing pranayama puts you in a state where if you're used to holding your breath, there's a place, there's a self that's totally at peace when all these other things and reactions might be happening, and it's like, that's not me, I'm me, so I can watch all this happen and associate with something else.
So I tend to spend a lot of time driving in my car. We spoke to this, and I'm just curious whether there are particular practices maybe that we talked about today that might be kind of okay to practice with driving.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the deal. Now that you know about conscious breathing, as I like to say, do Dirga Ujjayi breath for the rest of your life with every breath. How's that? That's the practice. Do Dirga Ujjayi breath, every breath for the rest of your life. And I just want to say also, if anybody has sleep issues and you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, okay, and the mind is going, and it's like, you start to think about all the worries and stuff like that, say to yourself, this is what I say to myself. Swami Kripalu woke me up. I'm so blessed, and he said, Devarshi, you need to do pranayama. You're going to go into a deep pranayama practice. And so I go, great, I'm going to practice Dirga Ujjayi breath. And I start, and I slow, and I play with how slow, how long, how smooth, how calm can I make my inhalation? And how slow, how smooth, how present can I be on my exhalation? And I play with that. And now generally, 5 minutes of that, and at some point the door to sleep opens. But I have had nights where for 5 hours I've done Dirga Ujjayi breath, and when it's time to get up, I go, wow, and I feel as rested or more than having a great night's rest. My body has received all of the benefits, and I also feel proud because I go, I just did a frickin' 5-hour practice of pranayama and never lost awareness the whole time. That's samadhi. So that's worth it. So it's a great thing if you have difficulty sleeping. Now, to get to your other question, we're going to end with this one breath. So this is the king of all pranayams. Okay, and each of these pranayams sort of land on top of each other, because along with fast, slow, in and out, nose and mouth, you can also do alternate nostrils, different nostrils, which accentuate different sides of the brain. So we're going to learn Anulom Vilom breath, which is an alternate nostril breathing, and it has breath retention in it. So take your right hand, and turn it into Vishnu mudra. So these are your fingers that make the peace sign. They come in and touch the pad of your thumb. So you have your thumb and your third finger available. Okay? So thumb and ring finger available. Does that make sense? Okay? There's some symbology as to why this is. There's actually magnetic polarities to the fingers, so there's a reason why we use these fingers. So thumb comes to the right nostril. Okay? You inhale through the left. At the top of the breath, you hold. Then you switch and exhale through your right. Then you inhale through the right, the same nostril. At the top of the breath, you hold. Then you switch and exhale through the left. Inhale through the left. So always the same nostril that you exhaled from, that's what you inhale from. Always hold at the top. Sit in the silence. Then switch and exhale the opposite nostril. Now close your eyes and go at your own pace. So slow, deep inhalation through the same nostril you exhaled from. Hold at the top. And it's not a breath holding contest. Just hold until you feel it's a long holding, but not forever. And then whenever you're ready, you switch and you exhale through the opposite nostril. Going at your own pace, you inhale through one nostril, you hold at the top, you switch and exhale the opposite. This helps to balance out the right and left hemispheres of the brain. And now that you've got the mechanics of it, you want to layer on Dirga Ujjayi. So as you inhale, you're making that ocean-sounding breath through one nostril. You're filling up belly, ribs, and chest. You get to the top, you hold. And then your own pace, switch, and Ujjayi breath on the exhale. When you come to a place where you exhale through your left nostril, let it be your final alternate nostril breath. And notice how you feel. So here's a challenge. 7 minutes of Anulom Vilom breath every day. Put on a timer, and rather than watch a clock, put on a timer so that you don't have to think about it. You can get into your breath. When the timer goes off, you're done. 7 minutes every day. Doesn't mean you have to stop at 7, but 7 minutes at least. So if any of this is of interest to you, there is a book called Pranayama, and wait. It's so funny. It's Pranayama and Pranavidya. That's it. It's called Pranayama and Pranavidya. But when they redid the book, it's just called Prana and Pranayama, and it's by Swami Niranjanananda. This is one word. Niranjan Ananda. So this is the Bible on pranayama and yoga as far as I'm concerned. And it's really great because over the many years it's been great to see things. There's been books by people who are great practitioners, but they're lacking sort of the science and about it. Then there are people who are very scientific, but they're lacking the ability to practice. This is from the Bihar School of Yoga. It's just one of my all-time favorite books. And it's all about prana and pranayama. So if you get a new copy, it's called Prana and Pranayama. If you get an older copy, which is just as good, it's called Prana, Pranayama, and Pranavidya, but I think that scared people, so they're like, let's just take that off. It's still about Prana, Pranayama, and Pranavidya, which means prana, knowledge of prana. Dasi.
It would be great to have a chart of all the different types of breaths, and then the mechanics of how to do it.
Yep.
And the last column could be the benefits.
And guess
have
what?
it right
This
there.
book has that. It does. It does. It lists them all out and goes through all of the different ways, and then all the ways that you can combine them. Because once you really start to practice, your own prana starts to wake up, and you find yourself doing these long holdings. And so, like for example, this Anulom Vilom breath, which was the signature breath at the ashram where I lived. So we practiced it a lot. The formal, way to do it is this: you inhale. Whatever your inhale is, that's your count of 1. Your holding is 4 times, supposed to be 4 times the length of your inhale. Your exhale is twice as long as your inhale. So it's inhale 1, hold for 4, exhale 2. Inhale 1, hold for 4, exhale 2. Okay? So that's cool. But literally, and it happens to me still, it's like so amazing, so ingrained, because for years we had, when we sat in meditation, 250 of us, we had a metronome on the piano in the front of the altar that went, so we could all count our breaths. So it'd be like, okay, let's say my inhale is 16. Okay, then I have to do multiplication. And my holding is 4 16s. My exhale is 32. And then of course, because we were young and competitive, how long do you hold? What counts are you on? Everyone was competing to see if you could get longer and bigger and wider, and and that meant something. So, but it's an interesting thing to play with. But those are just the mechanics. Ultimately, you go off the charts with it all, and none of that counting means anything, So, and again, just this in this one day, just like that experience with this yoga teacher Leela, was my first week of living in the ashram. And Yogi Desai, after morning practices, we woke at 4:30. We did yoga and pranayama, but then we would come into the meditation hall, and he would lead pranayama and meditation. Well, that normally it would be from like 6 to 7:30, and then we'd go start to do our thing. Well, he fell into Anulom Vilom breath, and 4.5 hours we were sitting and doing Anulom Vilom breath. Well, this, I was a novice. It was my first week here, So in those 4.5 hours, I learned so much about practice because, again, was going to do it right, but I fell asleep. I couldn't remember which nostril I was on. I sat up straight. I did it excellent. I lost my attention. I mean, like, you name it, it happened. In 4.5 hours, like every experience a person could have, that's practice. All of it is practice. And then you just keep going. So, thank you so much for your attention. Yes?
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Other than Ujjayi breath, during asana, I tend to find all breathwork practices like ungrounding, very ungrounding. And I don't know if that's an intended effect or not, but do you have any recommendations for breath? Like, would you precede asana with breathwork so that you get grounded with the asana? Or
So it's such a good question, and it's interesting because we have these labels, so the label is ungrounding. Okay, so you're having an experience of ungrounding, and somehow ungrounding is bad. It's not the experience you want.
I'm not necessarily saying it's bad.
Okay, but it's not the experience you want.
I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying I've noticed this.
Okay.
And what that does to me is make you feel a little unbalanced.
Okay. Lightheaded.
Not anymore.
Okay.
No.
But imbalanced in some way.
I don't know maybe how to describe it very well.
Okay, well, so just notice that you're having an experience, and it's not necessarily one that you're thrilled about.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just notice that.
Okay.
That's all. Because here's how yoga looks like for lots of people. People will go to a yoga class and then they leave and I'm not good at it, or I didn't like it, and it's like, well, okay, and what this is, the way yoga begins. The yoga teacher might say, inhale, lift your heart, and exhale, hinge at the hips and fold forward. And then in a person's internal experience is like, oh God, my back, I don't like this, oh geez, this, no, oh no, oh, how long are we gonna be here? Oh God, this really hurts, this, and somehow thinking that that's all, like it's somehow the pose, it's like, okay, well that's what's supposed to be happening. Right here is my edge. Wow, can I relabel that? And I hate this, my back hurts, this is, that's the story. Don't believe anything that we say. Don't believe a word that you say. Notice it and go, wow, I've really got a lot of going on here about this forward fold. This is really interesting. How about I just hang out here for a moment? And I'm like, I'm hating the teacher. I'm hating my back. I'm hating, like, wow, okay. What if maybe I want to change that? And I'm not saying this is you. I'm just saying that the mind, this is that thing about unlearning. We have all these labels and this and that, and you're having an experience. And maybe that experience is exactly what you should be having. So when we really heat ourselves up, because let me just say, when you're doing Kundalini yoga and you are breathing, it gets all the emotions stirring. You think you're going crazy because you are, and that's exactly what's supposed to be happening. So yeah. And and feel free to calm yourself, because this is the fun thing. Once you learn the breath, feel free to calm yourself with a slower breath anytime you need to. Yes, Keith.
When you were talking about the 7 minutes, were you talking about just that alternate nostril?
Yes. 7 minutes of alternate nostril breath. I used to have a timer. I always had my 7 minutes, and there was I have different periods of practice, but I would wake up every morning, make my coffee, get in this hot tub, and turn on my timer for 7 minutes. And I like being underwater like you do, so on my holding, I was under the water. And I would be moving and doing my yoga, and then I'd come up and switch and inhale and exhale, and I was down under the water again. And 7 minutes would come. I never, I just had to do minimum. Generally like 20, 22 minutes was where I felt like, gosh, I hit that sweet point. I did it.
What is the benefit of doing it for 7 minutes?
It just gets you started. There's plenty of amazing benefits. Right and left hemispheres of the brain, stimulates the vagus nerve. Again, if you start your day with conscious breathing, what you do is, I always say, I want to start the day by putting my witness consciousness on the throne. We have a throne there. Normally, we got an idiot, sitting on the throne. And we wake up and the idiot's running the whole show. And if you start with conscious breathing, it's like, wait, let me put witness consciousness in the throne and see how the day goes. So there's a big difference. Than one is the day just takes you and you're, on a wild horse ride. And the other is like, wait, how do I want to steer this horse? So that's, one of the possibilities of starting with conscious breathing in the morning. Yep, and I'm conscious of the time, so I'm trying to wrap it up. Yep.
I'm Richard, and I'm an alcoholic with Parkinson's disease. So
congratulations.
Yeah, I got really a couple of good reasons to learn to breathe. And I go to boxing 3 times a week.
Great.
And we learn stuff that's similar to what you're suggesting.
Wonderful.
In boxing, where you've got
Yeah.
left hook, right cross, jab.
Yeah.
And all that takes attention to breathing.
Good. I'd say you got a good boxing teacher. That sounds awesome. That's great. Congratulations. Anybody else? Somebody else had a... Thank you. Appreciate your attention so much. Practice, practice, practice. That's what we started with. I hope you got inspired in some way. Feel free to contact me. And donations for Hanuman Maui can be left. We always stick them between, you get a choice of your god, stick them between the legs of Hanuman or the legs of Ganesh. And that way we can figure things out. And thank you so much for coming. And have a great day. If you have any comments or questions, I'm open.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that I don't know how many here come on Sunday, but this Sunday and the following Sunday we will not have chanting. This Sunday we're having a special program. It's a donation-based program with Layovu and Meideen. It's Ram Dass's birthday. And then the following Sunday we will not have chanting because we will be chanting 108 chalisas on Saturday, which takes about 14 hours, and we'll try to set up for
That's
Sunday.
good. That's good.